Hiya folks, this is another one of my restorations I did on my Retro Hacks channel. This is a FS1E tank from the range from the 1970s or maybe early 80s, this one. And it's a bike I loved when I had one back in the 80s. So here we go, and as you can see, it was on the surface in pretty good condition. It did have some dents in it, but the underside was the bit that suffered the most. It had a lot of seams that were blown through, and also, as you can see, I'd had a go at trying to weld them before. But this really needed stripping completely down. And as you can see, it's got a crease there. There are a few other small dents in there, which we'll have to sort of attend to. But all in all, it's a good tank. The inside was pretty clean as well. There wasn't much rust inside at all. So obviously the first thing I got to do is to start to strip it down, and this was obviously before I had battery drills. This was done about 4 or 5 years ago, I think, this tank. So just getting off the sticky labels now with a wire brush. There's plenty of ways to do this. You can heat them up, but I didn't actually have a hot air heat gun at the time. So this is what I had in my hand, that's what I used. So yeah, just persevering with the rotary wire brush, removing the Yamaha decals. And all that residue there is the glue residue that I'll have to get off in a minute with some acetone or some thinners, if I remember rightly. Yeah, I just used some thinners there just to remove that sticky residue. And all I'm doing literally is just applying it directly onto the paint. Not really a good idea normally if you're using thinners on paint, because thinners, as you know, dilutes paint and removes paint. But this paint is so hard, and don't forget it's probably been on there for 40 plus years. The thinners, the way I'm rubbing it on, didn't actually touch the paint at all. So it did remove all the glue though, as you can see. So I'm lucky enough to have a media blaster. So now it's all sticky labelled, delabelled you could say. Time to get the old media blaster in action now. Now I'm using aluminium oxide in here. It's the best one I've found. I've used powdered glass before. But this seems to be good enough. This was the early days of my media blaster. As you can see there, I've got a set of rope lights in there for lighting, and also I didn't have the good ventilation and sucking the dust out. That's why it gets pretty dusty in there, which I've had that problem sort of solved now. But yeah, it comes off all right. This was the original paint by the looks of it. Hadn't been repainted at all. And as you can see, the tank is actually in very good condition. So now to get the blast media out of the inside of the tank, I've got this parts washer here filled up with paraffin, I think, if I remember rightly, that I've got in here. Yep. So just rinsing it out, and you'll see in a minute all the bits of grit that was left in there. There's no rust in there, I don't think, but I did end up sealing this tank as well, although I wouldn't use it. I was purely doing this for as a decoration piece for like a man cave or whatever. So I'd never actually tested it afterwards, after I'd put the sealer in it, because it was always going to be a restoration case for a man cave or whatever. So just giving it its final rinse out. As you can see, the grit's still coming out there. I've done that 3 or 4 times, and obviously got it all out. You can see, you just saw the condition of the inside of the tank there. Very good condition. So just bringing it outside now, and just want to dry it off. I'm going to use the airline for that, and I'll blow inside and out with the airline. Give it a wipe over. And as you can see, the tank's in pretty good condition there. It's just them holes at the bottom on them seam lines that were the problem. Plus, as I say, the little few dents that it did have. And there we go. time to start repairing them rust holes. But before that, I'm just going to give it out one more flush of hot water and put some detergent in there. I'm just using fairy liquid there and some boiling water, just to ensure that there's no stuff floating about in there, because as I said to you, I am going to seal this afterwards, although you won't see that in this video. So if there's any greasy residue still in there, hopefully that would be it now. So just remove them bits of tape, give it one last blow off and dry off, and that's all the preparation needed before I start actually sorting out these holes. So I did try them aluminium rods first of all, that's supposed to weld to anything or melt into anything. They didn't work. This is just some flux here, and the stuff I'm using now is actually silver solder. So I had a combination of silver solder and normal plumber's flux, which I did try, but the silver solder is the stuff that took the best, so that's what I ended up using. So after I'd applied it, you can just see I'm just using a die grinder there just to get the silver solder down. And as you can see, it all filled in now. So I've just got to make the underside now look a bit better, and I'm going to do that by using filler and also some fiberglass just to build up them surfaces to cover up that old silver solder there. So this is just some normal car body filler now, just mixing this up. You've got to work pretty fast with this stuff, especially if it's wall mount, because it goes off in no time. You can also see that I've already laid down a layer of fiberglass there, so I'm really just doing this filler just as a way of filling in any little sort of pinholes that were there, and just to provide a smoother surface, a finishing edge you could say. Doing the whole length there, because obviously I've built up around where the silver solder was, because it was sitting just above the surface, so I have to recreate the profile along the whole length as opposed to just the bit where I filled. There we go. And just apply a little bit of filler just to these dents that I found around the side of the tank. Don't need to put too much on here because we can always overfill it again. And if you use your fingers are probably the best tool for finding these little dents, by just rubbing your hands over the tank. You'll be surprised how sensitive they are. And as you can see, there was no rust on that tank whatsoever, so it's definitely a good candidate for doing this little restoration on. Right, so just using some 80 grit here now just to sand down the filler, just to get the rough shape. The 80 grit takes it down in no time. Again, I'm trying to keep the contour of the tank where it's curved a little bit, coming at it from all different angles. See, I'm using my hands there to fill over the top of the filler, just to see if we can fill in the edges or whatever. And I'm going with the curvature of the tank as well. There we go, look at that, look. There's the 80 grits, and now I'm going to make it finer to take out the scratches. And we'll use something like, is it 120? Yeah, 120 on this. Could use 180. And I'd probably go to 180, then you'll be able to spray your filler primer over the top of that then. So that was the intention there. 180 is okay for that. And as you can see there, just straightening out them lines underneath where the filler goes the whole length of the underside, so you won't be able to see the weld lines or whatever. having a wipe off. And all I'm going to do now is apply this zinc galvanised primer to the whole tank, just to act as a form of protection underneath before I put the filler primer on, because we are dealing with bare metal here. You could use an etch primer as well, exactly the same thing. It just helps the primers stick to the metal and it etches into the surface of the bare metal. There we go, we'll let that flash off. And now we're down at Jimmy's spray booth. This is the spray booth Jimmy had 3 or 4 years ago. So while he had that, I thought I might as well take it down there and get it sprayed down there. Just cleaning it off now. And this is a wax and grease remover, just to take any greasy fingerprints off of it. And I've got Jimmy here to hit it with a 2K filler primer. This is a lacquer green TI primer. It actually really sands down lovely, so I think we did end up putting a couple of coats on this. And what you can do, after you've done this, you could go over it with a guide coat, which is like a black powder or even black spray, and then lightly sand it down with 500, and if there's any little black spots left there, then obviously you may need to put some more filler. But as I say, this is nothing like a rattle can primer. This is really thick stuff. So here we go, 500 grit here now. Doesn't take long to flash off at all. This was all done in the same day, maybe an hour or so later. And one of the reasons why we dry sand this is because filler primers like this are actually porous and they will hold water. So you may have seen people's paintworks before where after they've sanded down with wet sandpaper, sprayed it, a few months later they get little bubbles come out, little water bubbles, because the primer's soaked in all the water and they've not allowed time for it to evaporate or dry away before they've actually sprayed. So we always dry sand. Looking really good now. So once again, wipe down with a wax and grease remover. We actually tack drag it down as well. I don't think you see that in this video, mind you. And this is the colour of base coat. This is a water-based base coat. This is actually the correct colour. We took the tank down to our motor factors and they scanned it and actually recreated the exact colour of this tank. So it is the original colour for that model. So I think it was 2 or 3 coats of base coat, I can't remember exactly. I think this is Jimmy applying the, oh, it was 3 coats of base coat, there we go. Final drop coat of metallics going on. Bearing in mind it is a metallic tank. So don't forget this is water based, this base coat, and as you can see it's gone on a treat. So now what we're going to do is to sand it back, because we're also going to apply the decals on top of this, so we wanted the best finish as we could without any orange peel. So that's what we're looking for there. We sanded back that shiny surface what we had. Just sanding it down, folks. So there you go. That's the tank we're going to work to, that image. So getting these labels height-wise correct is very important. So what we're doing now is just wetting the tank, as you can see, before we apply the decals. Some people just put the decal on straight away onto a dry tank, but that's a one-hit wonder. If you do that and get it in the wrong place, then you're stuck. This way, by wetting the decal underneath, you've got slide time, what I call slide time, where you can move the decal up and down, in and out, or whatever. And then all you do then is just dry off the water that's under the decal with a heat gun, and then it just evaporates and leaves the item stuck to the tank in the correct position. There you go. Looking great. So now we're going to give it its full lacquer now, folks. Again, it will be 3 coats. As you can see, just a light coat there, and it goes on so well. Look at that gloss already. Look, this is, as I say, this is only a light wet coat. The first coat we're putting on. There you go. Look at that, looks good already. And we made the decision that we wanted the decal to be under the lacquer, just to give it that sort of professional classic look. So this is the last coat now. And manufacturers don't normally pay too much attention to the underside of the tank. We've obviously treated the underside the same as the top side on this, so it's well protected. There you go. 3 coats of lacquer, top and bottom. So that's what we started off with, folks. A rusty old welded needed tank underneath, needed welding underneath, and that's the finished result. Absolutely superb. We were so pleased with the way this turned out. The decals under the lacquer look absolutely fantastic, and that would adorn any man cave. So there you go. Hope you've enjoyed this one, folks. Thanks very much for watching, and do keep your eyes out for some more of these we've got coming up. So we'll see you soon. Bye for now.